How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees. Alex here today. Ryan is with the misses, so I'm taking over solo. I want to talk about the starting rotation, mainly because I think this unit could be truly special. I think what's happening there is something that if everything kind of materializes the way that we think it can in terms of health and consistency, this unit is stupid talented, and I think some people are underrating just how good these guys could be. It's important to remember, I mean, Gerrit Cole only pitched 95 innings this past season. Clark Schmidt, he got injured on, May 26th and didn't make another start until September 7th. They missed like a huge chunk of the regular season and then went to the postseason, and they couldn't really lean on him. So I do think the addition they made in Max Fried, I want to talk about each individual pitcher, why they could really kick it into that next gear, and we could see this unit become one of the most dominant starting rotations in baseball, which in my opinion is not only probable, I think that it really depends on the health. And Gerrit Cole, for the first time, really experienced a little bit of health regression. He's been pitching 200 innings a year for how many years? And, looking at this situation now, coming off a year where he only pitched 95 at a 3.41 ERA, but he was still phenomenal during the postseason. He had like a 2.17 ERA in the playoffs, and he dominated. Of course, that one stain in the last game of the World Series where Judge drops the ball, the defensive mishaps, like these are things that were out of his control. So I think that he got a little bit unlucky there. Regular season, he even said it himself, he was dealing with general fatigue, and that comes from not being able to build up. I mean, he missed all of spring training, missed the first couple months of the regular season, and they were kind of giving him that time to get going, but he really did not kick it into top gear until we got to the playoffs, and we saw him at his best. I think those injuries were an anomaly in a much larger sample. Now, it is important to note that Gerrit Cole is 34 years old. So, eventually he's going to hit that age where things start to deteriorate. But I still think he's an ace right now. I still think he's got 1-2 years left of that Cy Young caliber performance. He operates at a different level than everybody else. I mean, we're talking about someone that is just a picture-perfect example of what you want a starting pitcher to be. The way he works, his work ethic, everything about him. He does everything to the inch with just expansive detail in his game and in his craft. It's an art form to him. Even if he loses a little bit of velocity, which he lost about a mile per hour of velocity last year due to the injuries, he was still able to really get his command going, and it still allowed him to be extremely effective even in the playoffs. So looking at Gerrit Cole, he's still the ace of this unit. I mean, I think most people would agree with that. We still got another year or two of really good performance from him before we might start to see age become a real factor in his velocity and in his kind of overall production. But adding Max Fried to this situation with an 8-year, $218 million deal, I mean, that's a massive investment, right? You're giving, $27 million per season to Max Fried. That is a huge, huge allocation of money and luxury tax space. But in the end, this is the move that you had to make because of Carlos Rodon's contract and the regression he experienced with the injuries in 2023. This year, he wasn't really altogether that good, but we saw some trends, and I want to talk about Carlos Rodon in a couple minutes, but Max Fried is one of those guys that you look at Max Fried's profile, and you're talking about someone that has substantial postseason experience. This past season, 3.25 ERA, over 174.1 innings. Yes, he does have some injury issues, but for the most part, it hasn't really hurt his stock or hurt his game at all. This is one of the best run prevention arms in the sport. The only one that's better than him is Gerrit Cole. So you're looking at a guy that velocity looked good, had tied his career high of 94.2 last season. Strikeouts were well within his career averages. Didn't see any major regression there. He did walk 2.94 batters per nine, the highest since 2020, but still drop in the bucket. Only allowed 0.67 home runs per nine. One of the lowest marks in his career. Had a 72.5% left on base rate and almost a 60% ground ball rate. He's a really high ground ball percentage guy. Huge run prevention, and we talk about that run prevention as a defensive thing for the Yankees, and you kind of focus on why we believe they're going to go get a defender for second base or third base. That is a great defender, because with the pitchers the Yankees have, you can't have a Gleyber Torres in this equation. You can't have these liabilities defensively. You have to have strong infield defense. We saw it during the postseason, what it did. I think now the Yankees can really ramp things up and have one of the best defensive teams in baseball in terms of the run prevention with another signing on the infield. We know DJ LeMahieu was a great defender at third base. We know Jazz is too. We know that Oswaldo Cabrera is another above average guy there. The offensive profile is just a problem, and the age and inconsistency. I know a lot of people want to see Oswald Peraza. I think in a perfect world, you bring in a guy that is a great defender, has some offensive upside. I mean, you guys know on the podcast, we love Brendan Donovan. He'd be our dream acquisition. But we love Ha-Seong Kim, great defender, great base runner, slightly above average bat. We would be fine with that too. Coming off an injury, you might be able to get him for a little bit cheaper, maybe a 1-year deal even, if we're lucky. So, I mean, at this point, I believe Max Fried plays into the strategy of better infield defense, which is why we went and got Paul Goldschmidt, much better player than Anthony Rizzo or anyone we had at first base last season. But, Max Fried is the supplement to Carlos Rodon not really working out so far. But with that being said, Rodon's a really interesting player because he's coming off this year where I kind of look at 2023 and I say to myself, that was like a substantial drop-off, right? Like 64.1 innings he pitched, had a 6.85 ERA. He was horrible, had a negative WAR. I think Carlos Rodon's bounce-back year was actually 2024. So you see what the Mets did with Luis Severino. He had that kind of off year with the Yankees. He was down. They bought low on him, and he was a star for them last season. This is kind of, if Rodon was hitting free agency right now, they'd be looking at it saying that was his first year after multiple serious injuries. So before we write off Rodon, I kind of want to look at some stats that make me a little bit more intrigued about a potential big bounce back here for him. So he struck out 10 batters per 9 last year, which is a nice increase from 9 in 2023. Left on base percentage skyrocketed almost 20%. His ground ball rate increased about 6%. The walks came down, the home runs came down. He still gave up 1.59 per 9, which is a stupid high. He's got to bring that number down. It was more than double, almost triple what he had in 2022 and 21. So we know he can be better in that area, but he pitched 175 innings. Just the second time in his career he's pitched over 170. So the longevity is there. We saw the stamina kind of, bubble back to the surface. And, what we really want to see from Rodon is that fastball command return. Last year, the fastball was horrible. 262 batting average, 514 slugging rate, but the slider was elite. Allowed a 199 batting average, 361 slugging. The changeup, 188 batting average, 247 slugging. So if that fastball command, if he can get that fastball back to where it needs to be, and the thing about the fastball here is the velocity is actually pretty good. Had the same exact fastball velocity in 2021 and 2022. But that average was 199 in 21 and 213 in 22. So we saw the command fall off for Rodon. Not the velocity, but the command. If he can rein that four-seamer back in, we're looking at having 2 elite lefty starters here. So I'm not writing Rodon off yet. I think third time might be a charm. I know he's 32 years old, but that contract, you were supposed to get the most out of it in the first 2 years. That was what the Yankees were hoping. But if Max Fried does what he does, and I think he will, we're going to have an elite lefty starter, like an ace-level lefty starter at the top of the rotation with Gerrit Cole. And I think Rodon pieces together what could be a really nice bounce-back season. I could see him finishing with like a 3.3 ERA. And guys, a number 3 pitcher in your rotation with a 3.3 ERA, I think we'll freaking take that. If you're asking me, I'm happy with that. So, I believe Rodon, the underlying metrics look pretty good. The slider, the velocity, it all looks really strong. It's just the command. And I think that sometimes he gets in his own head. We saw it in the postseason. He was striking out guys, like 11 strikeouts in a couple innings. And then a guy hit a double, 2 outs in the inning, and then he kind of deteriorated from there. He gets in his own head. Like he goes from really, really good to really bad in the blink of an eye. And I think the Yankees need him to take the Gerrit Cole treatment. And just like every single pitch, every single battle or batter is a battle in of itself. Can't really celebrate those moments in the third inning because you don't know what's going to happen in the fourth, fifth. You still got to keep going. Sometimes those celebrations and those big moments early on in the game, it fuels the other team too. So, I think Rodon's got to kind of reel in that confidence and just be composed. Battle. Every single pitch, every single batter is a battle. It's its own battle in a war. And I think that's kind of where I see him taking a big step forward mentally next season. I could see a big bounce back year coming for Rodon. But that leads me to another pitcher I really, really like, and it's Clarke Schmidt. People underrate Clarke Schmidt substantially. He's 28 years old. As I mentioned earlier, he pitched 2 months of the regular season last year, got to like May 26th, and then missed 4 months of action. Like, that's crazy. So Looking at Clark Schmidt, only pitched 85.1 innings last season, had a 2.85 ERA, almost had 10 strikeouts per nine. He was trending towards being one of the best pitchers on this team last season. 1.7 WAR in 85 innings is really, really good. If he can stay healthy, his pitch mix is tremendous. He's got so many pitches. He has a sinker, he's got the cutter, he's got, the slider, he's got the changeup, he's got everything you want, and they're all pretty good. So I think that Clark Schmidt being consistent and staying healthy will be a big, big, big bonus for this Yankee starting rotation. And a lot of teams would love to have a Clark Schmidt. I mean, he's only a free agent in 2028. So valuable to have a pitcher like Clark in the middle of your rotation. He's our number 5 right now. You could argue Luis Gil's above him. So, Clark Schmidt being a number 5 in your rotation, take a second to realize how lucky that is for the Yankees. Most teams would die for a pitcher like Clark Schmidt to be at the top of their rotation, a 2 or 3 spot. We have him in arguably the 4 or 5 spot. So embarrassment of riches already coming to fruition here for the Yankees. If he can pitch at that high level, it's going to be a gauntlet. Any team going through in the postseason especially, you have a 3-man rotation, and then you have a couple guys like Clark coming out of the bullpen or Luis Gil coming out of the bullpen. We're talking about really, really good pitching across the board, not to mention Devin Williams, now our new superstar closer. If he stays healthy, we know his changeup is stupid, insane amount of talent. And Luke Weaver, he proved himself to be a star last year as well. So I'm pretty optimistic and pretty bullish on this starting rotation. But that leads me to Luis Gil. And Luis Gil, guys, we know how great he is. A lot of people didn't even want to move him for Kyle Tucker if that was a possibility. But Luis Gil was tremendous. He had a 208 expected batting average last year, which ranks in the 86th percentile, ranked in the 88th percentile in fastball velocity at 96.6. Now, where I want to see Luis Gil get better is his command with his fastball. I think everybody knows this, though. Opposing hitters hit 205 against his four-seamer with a 395 slugging rate, 28.5% whiff rate. This dude has one of the best fastballs on the team. But the problem is his walk rate. Now, he walked 4.57 batters per 9 last year, gave up 1.07 home runs per 9. So, yeah, maybe you'd love to bring the home runs down slightly, but it's not like crazy amount that it's going to be detrimental to his game. He was a 2.2 WAR player, AL Rookie of the Year. 151 innings coming off some pretty injury-prone years at the minor league level, finally gets to the majors as a key component of this team and kicks ass. I mean, this dude was electric at times. We saw him dominate some really good teams. This is a pitcher, if he stays healthy, I believe has ace upside. Luis Gil has legitimate ace upside. But he's got to get that fastball in the strike zone. Just throw strikes. That's all we want to see. Nobody can touch his fastball. And Ryan will back this up. Nobody can touch Luis Gil's fastball. He just doesn't throw it in the strike zone enough. Having a 200 batting average on your fastball is elite by like every single metric or perspective. So, I do think that right now, if you are the Yankees, just get Luis Gil and just have him throw strikes and use that slider. It's that easy for Luis Gil. It's just getting under command of his pitches. That will be what his next step in the development is. But keep in mind, this is a young player, 26-year-old, 1 year of MLB starting experience, pre-arbitration, free agent in 2029. This is one of the most valuable trade candidates on the market when we thought Kyle Tucker was in the mix. Now we know Jim Crane just didn't want to give us Kyle Tucker. The Yankees said we didn't actually want to trade Luis Gil. So, but keep in mind, like Luis Gil is your 4 or 5. AL Rookie of the Year is your number 4 or 5 starting pitcher. That is as I keep saying, an embarrassment of riches. So what I really want to round this episode saying is the upside of this unit. Gerrit Cole, we know he's Cy Young caliber. I'm not worried about Gerrit Cole. Max Fried, one of the best run prevention lefties in the game. Carlos Rodon, his first year following substantial injuries. I think he's primed for a nice bounce back. Gets control of that fastball. We're going to see Carlos Rodon become a key lefty starter in this rotation, which is what allowed us to trade Nestor Cortez. Clark Schmidt was on pace to be one of our best starters last year if he stayed healthy. He has a ridiculous amount of pitches in his arsenal. Really, really quality young pitcher under control for many years as your number 4. I mean, that's incredible. And then Luis Gil, the AL Rookie of the Year, who, if he gets control of that fastball, is going to be an ace caliber starter. So I do think that right now the Yankees got something special going on in the starting rotation. Now it's usually impossible to have like everything go perfectly. There's always injuries that arise, but hopefully they're not season ending and they're just, maybe a couple weeks here and there. It happens. Pitchers get hurt. But if these guys reach their potential at the same time, the Yankees are going to have the best rotation, or I wouldn't say the best, but they're going to have one of the best rotations in the sport, and it's going to be one of the best rotations we've seen from the Yankees in many, many years. This is the type of rotation you need to kick some serious ass in the playoffs. We're going to walk through. If we could get a nice bat to fill second base, third base, one of those spots, we're going to walk through the American League. We're going to body the American League. And then you get to the playoffs and you just survive, get to the World Series, and ultimately this is the type of pitching, kind of staff you need to take down the Dodgers, take down the Padres, take down the Mets. And one of the best ways to counter losing Juan Soto is getting the pitchers that can help you overcome the loss and beat Juan Soto in a World Series. And, this is what the Yankees have done. So I'm pretty optimistic, really bullish on this unit. Would love to hear your perspectives down below in the YouTube comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, my friends. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.